Thank you all so much for the power pack session, interactive session. So now let us have a break for about 10 minutes. So refreshment will be served in the pantry at the outside. So maybe around exactly at 3:25, we all will resume back here for the next session. Thank you all.
Namaste all of you. A very good afternoon to all of you and welcome you all back to the focal point session on interdisciplinary research, innovative solutions for global challenges. For this focal point session, we have our resource person, Dr. Sandeep Shastri sir, who is a political scientist and former Vice Chancellor of Jagaran Lake University and Pro-Vice Chancellor of Jain University. He is the National Coordinator of Nitte Network. His research spans election studies, federalism, innovation in teaching, and survey-based research. He is affiliated with prestigious international research bodies and has served as an international consultant for the Forum of Federations. Dr. Shastri is on the executive committee of two important research committees of the International Political Science Association. He has played a pivotal role in drafting the Karnataka youth policy and has lectured in over 30 countries across the globe. With 13 books, 60 plus articles in edited books, over 100 articles in refereed research journals and more than 300 articles in op-ed pages of newspapers, his contributions are substantial and diverse. A warm welcome to you, sir. I request you please come on to the stage. This focal point session basically emphasizes on the role of interdisciplinary collaboration in addressing complex global challenges. In today's interconnected world, societal issues such as climate change, public health crisis, and technological disruptions require multifaceted approaches that transcend traditional disciplinary boundaries. This session aims to explore the power of interdisciplinary research in generating innovative solutions to these pressing challenges, enhancing a collaborative environment from diverse fields that can come together to leverage their expertise and perspectives. Sir, now the session is over to you.
Good afternoon, friends. With your permission, I'd prefer not to be far away from you, far away on that dais. I want to come up to your level, and therefore I thought it's important I come here, and with the cameraman's permission, I'll also walk down, because I want this to be a dialogue, being the last session. I don't want it to be a one-way discussion. There is no discussion time. All time is discussion time. You can ask me a question anytime, just by raising your hand. I'll stop and hand over the floor. At the outset, a very special thanks to CES and to the Sheshadripuram institutions, both of whom are very close to my heart in terms of the wonderful work that both of them do. So when Professor Gaurisha requested me to come here, there was no way I could say no. It was only a question of whether it should be in the morning or in the afternoon. And I think good I took the afternoon session, because people like Joshi sir have already made the ground ready for what I have to say. And I'm lucky in a sense that I did not hear the morning session and the early part of the afternoon session. I came in only for the end of the afternoon session. So I could always say things assuming that nothing has been said about that till now. So forgive me if some of the things I say is what has already been covered by colleagues. Now, the topic I was suggested was interdisciplinary research and how that could lead to innovative solutions to global problems. To start off with, I thought I would take something which my team had prepared at Bhopal as part of the response to the national education policy, which is becoming part of a book which Joshi sir is editing. And I thought I'd share that first because some of the terms on the first slide are part of what we are going to see as part of the second slide. We had developed this We had developed this as part of what we called the 4 key goals of NEP and the 4 critical pathways of NEP. The 4 key goals being the Indian roots, the global citizenship, the 21st century literacies, and the focus on personal well-being as the goals of education. And to achieve these goals, we talked about 4 pathways: lifelong learning, professional skills, inter and cross-disciplinary, and action-oriented. I think 2 of the terms which form part of my title are there. The whole question of preparing the next generation, focusing our research on global needs and global challenges. And secondly, the 21st century literacies which our research should have and which our teaching should focus on, learning should focus on, which is inter and cross-disciplinary skills. Now, to take this discussion forward, I'm going to use 2 pathways. I'm going to discuss as I proceed innovation and interdisciplinarity from the perspective of 4 A's. I've made it 4 A's because it's easier for us to remember them. From the angle of approach, the angle of attitude, the angle of aspirations, and the angle of anxieties. And I thought the second point I'd like to make is, I would like to look at interdisciplinarity and how we move in that direction by using my own 42 years of journey in the area of research. Ma'am, could we go to the next slide? My 42 years in the journey of research, I have divided that into 3 phases. And I think it's linked to interdisciplinarity. Firstly, from 82 to 91, when I was testing the waters, many people here may not have been born at that point of time, where we were testing waters. What is research? You see, testing, like, this is like when you go to a beach. I hope I'm not talking about the wrong things in terms of keeping people's interest. When you go to a beach and you see the serene waters, what do we like to do? We would like to test the waters. You see, first by putting our leg in or our hand in. How cold is it? Etc., etc. Now, our research beginnings are like that. We test the waters. How is it? And the second phase, when I completed my PhD and became a guide, you see, then I realized you are wading through. Your work is over. Your own research is over. And now you have to help others do research. Some of you must be wondering, help others do research? My guide didn't do that or doesn't do that. Now, ideally, correct Joshi sir? Ideally, in my days, students used to say in the university, they are searching for a hardworking guide, not a hardworking student. So, as a guide, wading through the waters, the research waters. That's the second phase for me. And the third phase, when I took up administrative leadership in research, there comes the phase when you have the power to get yourself and others take a deep dive. So I'm going to discuss interdisciplinarity in terms of these 3 phases. So I'm doing 2 things. My 4 A's of interdisciplinarity and innovation, and I'm going to interspace that with what I call the 3 phases in my research journey, which I'm sure with people like Professor Sadananda around and Professor Joshi around, they themselves have also experienced these phases in their career. Now, taking this forward, let me look at the first phase, testing the waters. when we start our journey of research, when we decide, which sometimes is a long decision to take, should I do PhD? Where should I do PhD? Who am I safe with? What is the topic I will do it? Now, all these questions. Now, I think that's part of the first phase. Understanding my field. Because remember, that's important to do, because even today, after 33 years of completing my PhD, even now people ask me, sir, what did you do your PhD on? I said, I have done a lot of research after that. That's okay. But what did you do your PhD? That's like a chain which will remain with you for the rest of your life. So, be 100% sure you are happy about what you chose. Be 100% sure that 20 years from now you will be happy about what you chose. So, understanding your field. Forget other disciplines. Do I understand my discipline itself? And when I start that journey comes the next phase, the importance of a dialogue. And what do I mean by a dialogue here? The importance of the dialogue, I mean, having understood my subject, can I start dialogue with others? I am working on, you start telling people. And then they tell you, because each one of us has our happy hobby horse. Oh, you are working on that? Why did you choose that? This is much better. And then you run to your guide. Sir, ma'am, doubt. And what, depending on your guide, either the guide would say, do you want to work with me? Then this topic. Or if you are lucky to have a guide with me who said, okay, explore what you want to explore. 6 months back, I went back to him. No, sir, what we thought originally is better. I told you that time only, but I wanted you to discover it. Joshi sir, I often say this. Let me take an analogy for this. How many people here with a 2-year-old, 3-year-old kid? Yeah, great. Boy or girl, ma'am? Ma'am is talking. I am not talking about future plans. She said, right now, boy. Okay. When you and your son cross the road, how do you cross the road? Or does he do like this also? When he's very tired, he says, lift me up. Yeah. So you lift him up and cross the road. And once you cross the road, he wants to go down. Again. How many of us have 9-year-old, 10-year-old kids? Boy or a girl, man? Boy. How do you both cross the road? Sure? You come. He doesn't want to hold your hand. He thinks he's a big boy. You hold and you go forward, right?
I think he's small.
You think he's small. He thinks he's bigger than you also. Anybody here with 14, 15-year-old kids? Ma'am, how do you cross the road? He doesn't hold. He's Amma, 5 steps behind. Right? So my son told me that. When he was in school, 5 steps behind. I said, why? My classmates tell me, why did your grandfather come with you? What's that? But what is the point I'm making? The 2-year-old needs you. The 8-year-old you need. And the 15-year-old, but when there is a problem, when he phones you up, Amma, who is the first one he will call? So then I think the guide and student relationship is similar. Beginning, you want them. When you become, you think now, 3 years into PhD, you don't need them. But when problem comes, like the 15-year-old, go back to the guide. But what's the larger point I'm making? I grow as a researcher when I have that dialogue. I don't know about, I think this is a very good institution. Many places I go to, ma'am, In a department, they don't know what research other colleague is doing. Of course, you can say, is he doing research at all? That's a different question. Even if a colleague is doing research, do I know what research the colleague is doing? Each of us are in silos. I know what people in other colleges are doing. They will tell me your colleague is working on that. Oh, is that so? You will say. So, where is that dialogue? I encourage you all, can we start fortnightly dialogues on research? Where each of us by turn present, this is the work I am doing. Nobody will steal it, I promise you. The only thing is you have to make it of a quality to present it, otherwise you are in trouble. And then the third, that dialogue results in process of knowing. Thanks to my discussions with Joshi sir, in Jain we started a system. 50% of coursework research methodology was interdisciplinary. So a PhD music student, a PhD mechanical engineering student, a PhD commerce student, and a PhD public policy student sat together in the same class. In the beginning they thought, what will I learn from mechanical engineer? Thought, what will I learn from this music student? But at the end of the coursework, they confided that if we had not sat together, there are many things we would not have learned. So I encourage all of you in this first stage of research, where you don't talk about interdisciplinarity, you talk about mastering your field. It's then you have the competence to look beyond the shore at other fields. And that mastering your field for me involves these 3 steps. And ma'am, can we move forward? And now, what should our approach be? Can you have a discussion with your guide and tomorrow morning decide this is my topic? When you have to write a research paper, well, ma'am was referring to quality. Somebody asked a question to her on quality. If I have to write a quality research paper, how long does it take me? Can I say tomorrow evening 6 to 8 I will sit, start my thinking at 6 o'clock, end my thinking at 8 o'clock, and my paper will be, no man, 6 to 8 nothing will happen. Even the first word will not come. Have I allowed my idea germination time? You may not believe it looking at me. Every morning I go for a 1 hour walk. Can you imagine what would have happened if I was not going on a 1 hour walk? And what is that 1 hour walk? Germination time. This morning when I went on my 1 hour walk, last night I had sent Gaurisha sir my PowerPoint. I worked on it when watching the cricket match, IPL match. When sixers were being hit, I stopped my slides. When matches were going slow, I started typing. But this morning on my walk, I was thinking, what should I say on which issue? Which is the example relevant for this? Is there something I could talk about this? Do we give our research the germination time? Do I keep that mental conversation going? Back of my mind. Remember that famous ad? The child asks the father, what is the capital of Somalia? And father continues to brush his teeth, not having the answer. And next day morning when they are brushing their teeth, suddenly the father shouts, Mogadishu. It took 24 hours for that from there to come here. See? Very true of research. You don't know when that idea comes, but is my antenna always up for that idea to come? Or is the idea hovering around and my antenna is down? Have I given time for germination of the idea? Because idea has to develop. You have to keep that engagement going. I always tell those doing research or writing an article, doing research is not about 4 days a week coursework class only. End of coursework class, close it, and when do you open it again? Next class. Nothing happens in between. Or once coursework is over, you remember you are doing PhD only when the guide sends you a mail. Or you start post-PhD, you start thinking of research when you have to write an article. Now, the question is, do you write an article because you have done research and come up with an idea? Or do you want to present a paper and therefore you start thinking of what should I write on? It should be the first, ideally. Your research is going on, the conference comes and gives you an opportunity to present. Now, if that has to happen, you have to keep the engagement and the conversation going, conversation time with yourself. I like that quote in the side. When your imaginary friends stop talking to you, that is, in your mind that debate is not going on. Am I taking the right decision? No answer from within. Have I chosen the right methodology? No answer from within. Is that dialogue going on within? And let me take the second phrase, our attitude. Why are we doing research? Saran sir, what is the common answer your PhD students do? Why are you doing research? University has made it a condition. Why are you doing research? My increment and promotion is held up. Sorry, sir? Three, no, sir, I am out of touch. 3 increments are held up. So why research? If research is for those increments and for that promotion, that anxieties become, that attitude is clearly reflected there. Why? Is research for a degree or is research out of passion? Are you passionate about research? I can make out when I talk to a researcher and ask him or her, what are you doing research on? If they're very apologetic, I know what the answer is. But if their eyes light up, if their smile becomes big, I know that they are doing research out of passion. Are we researchers out of passion? Look at the cartoon up there. Look at the cartoon up there. No wonder you can't write, you're not plugged in at all. And here it is not about the computer being plugged in, it's about the mind being plugged in. Are we plugged in? Are we plugged in? Does our family tell us, when will your research end? You don't seem to be talking about anything else to us. When I was in Jain and looking after the PhD program at the convocations, always the spouse used to come running to me. Are you Dr. Shastri? I said, yes, I am Dr. Shastri. Sir, my husband or my wife, whichever the case is, always used to talk about your class during dinner time. Because so much, our class was from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the evening. PhD class. And then they went home and dinner. Now, does that passion show in the work that we do? Do we do it as a requirement and as a deadline? Or are those requirements and deadlines incidental? Is my question. Which brings me now to my second stage, wading through, where interdisciplinarity comes in now. I have reasonably mastered my subject. I know my subject reasonably well. I will never know it perfectly, but I know it reasonably well. I am on firm ground. Because I am on firm ground, I can wade through now. And here I am talking about 5 things. Does content devise, is there a link between my content and the context? Why interdisciplinarity? Why interdisciplinarity? I'm sure all of you know the distinction between multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity. What would that difference be? Anybody can help me with that? How would we differentiate between multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity? Or are they terms which basically mean the same thing? Are they interchangeable words? I promised to make it a dialogue, so I am starting the dialogue. Don't become like my typical students now, which is until now you were looking at me. And now because I'm going around, suddenly people are looking elsewhere because suddenly they don't want me to come up to them and ask them the question. Sir, is there a difference? What is it?
Disciplinary is between two different subjects. Interdisciplinary is between within the subject with different perspectives. Like just in sociology, we have urban sociology and our rural sociology that becomes a interdisciplinary.
Wonderful. Anybody else would like to add to what he said? The philosopher will have the last word on this, but let me put my small word on this. I believe multidisciplinarity means I am rooted in a discipline, my discipline. Like as a student of political science, multidisciplinarity would mean I am rooted in political science. And once I am firm in my roots in my subject, I also look at, is there something I can learn from other subjects? Interdisciplinarity, on the other hand, is the subject is secondary, the concept is primary. My concept, let us say, is climate change. When I say interdisciplinarity, I am approaching climate change from the perspective of what different disciplines have contributed to climate change. So when we say interdisciplinary projects, it does not mean section A is economics, section B is politics, section C is sociology. No. Interdisciplinarity is the sociologist, the economist and the political scientist, the commerce researcher, the management researcher, and maybe the philosophy researcher come together, focus on a concept, and then develop that concept bringing in their perspectives. Now, that's why I said context driven by content. What is the theme and which are the areas which come into the discussion on that theme? And once I do that, boundaries disappear. I don't know where management ends and where business analytics begins. I don't know where business analytics ends and where hardcore computer science begins. I don't know. Boundaries blur. Boundaries blur. Joshiji, was my explanation correct or would you like to add something?
No, that's fine. Level of integration increases as you move from multidisciplinary to interdisciplinary.
Very true. Level of integration increases, and that's why that boundary disappears. Is Amartya Sen an economist? If you say yes, then why is it that 2/3 of his career he has worked in departments which have nothing to do with economics? Why was he called in London the professor of sociology, a professor of policy, and not of economics? Because at that level, those boundaries disappear. When Sadanand sir talks about caste, is he a sociologist? No. He's very much a political scientist. And when he talks about culture, is he a student of religion and philosophy? No. The boundaries disappear at that stage. And that's the stage which I'm encouraging all of you to go into. That is the stage where research is about a multi-textured world. When I talk about caste, and let's say on a television program we are discussing caste, suddenly the other side will tell me, you sociologists, and I have understood he has made a wrong assumption. Because he is convinced with his limited knowledge that if you talk about caste, you are only a sociologist. Now, can I look at my world of research from that multi-textured perspective? That's what would give me the flavor of interdisciplinarity. Especially when I'm researching what is complex. And as I dive deeper into research, every topic becomes very complex. Then interdisciplinarity comes in a big way. And then the question of methodology and rules. What is the methodology I use? Which domain do I borrow that methodology comes up? And let me take the discussion forward to 2-3 more points. If I move into interdisciplinarity, what are some of my anxieties? Why do I encourage colleagues to publish in good journals? Does a predatory journal look good on your CV? When interviewing candidates, I have shortlisted or taken out of shortlist candidates whose biodata looks very good, but then one article which they published in a journal. Now, this was the case of a commerce professor publishing in a journal of fisheries. Journal of Fisheries. I thought there was something fishy about it for sure. I asked myself, has it something to do with the business of selling fish? But it had nothing to do with fisheries. When I asked that person, why did you publish here? This was the only one which was willing to accept my article and publish it within 48 hours. And I needed to have the article within 48 hours. But I say, look at that, what it has done to your CV. It has destroyed your chances for moving up, because there are people who will look at that. So what's the company I keep? What is the type of conference I present in? Everybody calls a conference today as an international conference. What's the type of conference I present my paper in? What is the quality of the paper I have? Has it been reviewed by the right people? The company, see, it is often said, no? Tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are. Same with research. Tell me your research company, I'll tell you the research you are doing. So am I keeping the right company? Am I looking at work happening around me? Am I aware of the work that is happening around me? Do I search for the right focus? Do I ensure all this? And look at what I have said in the middle. Giving up is very easy. That's why 25% of PhD students don't complete their PhD. I don't want to frighten anybody, but that's hard reality. 80% of papers are not accepted before at least 2-3 rounds of correction. If your paper is accepted in the first round itself, be worried. Be worried. Somebody asked, ma'am, quality. If your paper is accepted in the first round, you should be worried. Has that paper gone through a double-blind review, and do they take that review seriously? So, can I keep going even when the going is tough? And that's what the global challenge today is. How do I now, how do I not become the 10,000th person working in that area? See, how do I not become the 10,001 person working in that area? What makes my study special? Joshi sir knows this. One of the most embarrassing questions a PhD student can be asked in her viva is, could you not have said all this without doing PhD? Nothing can be more embarrassing in a PhD viva. To be asked, could you not have said all this without doing PhD? Now, what are they trying to tell you? What are they trying to tell you? Or you write a research paper and somebody asks you, could you not have said all this without doing the research you did for this article? That question. Very embarrassing question. You sometimes feel humiliated when asked that question. But remember, that's not about you. It's about the work you have done. It's about the work you have done. A few more points before I close. If I have to be a globally recognized researcher in my field, can I make it something I love to do? That's why I said in the beginning, carefully reflect on what you want to do, because it's not about today, it's about 20 years from now. Once in a way, pat your back also that I did this, but more often than not, pull up your socks also. And look at what comes on the right. How true is that? Write the book that you would want to read. Forget whether others want to read it or not. Would you like to read that? Would you be excited about reading what you have written? And would you be proud of it? Joshi said, today sometimes when I read my first article of 1984, I am ashamed of myself. I said, did I really write that? And when my guide was alive, I asked him, sir, did I really? Yeah, you really wrote that, but then you went forward after that also. That gave me a sense of reassurance. My last point. Tomorrow when you all take on leadership positions in research, that deep dive, which is not about you, but the systems you create and what you leave as a legacy for the future. As a head of the department, as a principal, as a researcher, the legacy that you leave behind for others. I have looked at it from 4 angles. Can I bridge that divide between disciplines? Can I answer those people who say, no, I am an economist, I am not a sociologist. No, I am a commerce professor, not a management professor. That is management, not commerce. This is commerce, not management. Actually, it may be neither. I was having this, Joshi sir gave me a very interesting point last time. He said outside South Asia, sir. Outside South Asia, commerce as a discipline doesn't exist at all. It's only we South Asians who say commerce. Maybe that's because of our financial roots and our focus on so much on money. And given the fact that the state which drives it today is about commerce ultimately. But my question is, can I, whenever I get a chance as a researcher, bridge this gap between boundaries? Can I be a pioneer to do this? I remember, Sadan sir, when Vinod and I started off our career in Bengaluru University, we started something. In our free time, we would ask our history colleague and English colleague and psychology colleague, can we come to your class and sit when we don't have a class? First they were suspicious, why does these fellows want to come? Especially psychology people, because they had more women in their class than in our classes. But then we realized if we were to go to each other's class and learn, there were so many insights we were able to get. And we pioneered at that point of time holding talks where we brought people from other departments into our department. I still remember we brought T.G. Vaidyanathan, that English professor, who used to mostly hold his classes in the canteen. We brought him to our department for a talk. And we had people sitting on the windowsills also, listening to him. And from all subjects they had come to take part. Now, when I get a chance to lead, can I bridge that boundary? Can I? Now, this is a huge challenge. I want to master my territory, but do I use the right research instruments? I am a quantitativist. First thing my social science students are put off is, we did not want maths and you bring maths here. I said, that's the method. We are going to use mathematical techniques and terms, because that's the right instrument to try and study this. When today in our pre-poll survey we say, if in 2019 it was Pulwama, in 2024 it is Ram Mandir. Because when people are asked what is the greatest achievement of this government, 1 out of 4 said construction of Ram Temple. 1 out of 4. People were telling us there is no issue in this election. There is. Now how do I come to know this? There is huge data that we are dealing with. And as a social scientist, I cannot ignore statistical techniques. I learnt it in my 30s. Because when I was doing PhD, nobody taught us that. But when we started doing this in 1995, I realized that I cannot take this forward unless I am adept at that. So I went, attended a 6-week course, learnt it, and then continued my work. Thirdly, thinking, practicing, and relating to reality in newer ways. When the Prime Minister says today, I am giving you a guarantee. Now it's not a simple statement. Can I think, practice, and relate to reality? Is it linked to the reality we see around us? When 2/3 of people say unemployment is a problem, but you push further, 3/4 of those 2/3 say, I have a job, but I want a better job. So is it unemployment then? Is it unemployment then? I have a job, but there is a job problem because I want a. So is it an aspiration problem or an unemployment problem? Think about it. Now, if I relate to reality, I can answer that question. If I relate to the world around me, I can understand that question. I'll take one more example. When we were doing the youth survey in Karnataka, when we were doing the youth survey in 2004, we had asked a question to young people. Do you often feel lonely? Saran sir, what do you think your gut feeling would have been? Would most young people say, yes, I feel lonely? We thought yes. With no more joint families, single child families, many single parent families, loneliness may be a reality today for children. What did we find? Only 20% said, yes, I feel lonely. 80% said no. I was foxed when I saw this, because this went against conventional wisdom, if you may. So what did I do? I went to the field to meet people. I was sitting in a BMTC bus, and there was a young college student in front of me in the other seat. She was swaying her head from side to side because she had earphones in both the ears. And then once when those earphones came out, I asked her, child, do you ever feel lonely? She said, no, uncle. My earphones are always with me. My earphones are always with me. For our generation, Loneliness was about lack of human company. For her, it has nothing to do with human company. Relating to reality in newer ways. And then finally, the question of all of us, the 21st century researchers, who's dealing with technology, who's dealing with AI. Reference was made to that in the previous session. Can I make AI my assistant rather than my competitor? How do I do that? One day I went to, I still take class, and that's the misfortune of my students. And I tell the director of the campus, don't introduce me. I'll go and start off. So first class, they're all watching. What is this old man going to tell us? One day I gave them a data point. According to Human Development Index, India ranks. You know what happened immediately, sir? They're asking Dr. Google, what is India's rank on HDI? And you know what? Fortunately, Dr. Google told them I'm correct. And then they are looking at each other. Let me, now you can listen to him, he's correct. So why am I correct, Sadanand sir? I am correct because Dr. Google told them I am correct. I am not correct because I did all that research and found out myself. Dr. Google told them I am correct, that's why I am correct. This is the 21st century researcher who has access to technology. One day in online class, I was taking a class, I told students, there is an article I remember, I knew the whole article, it is in front of me there. There's an article I remember, I am not able to recall when it was published, but this is what it said. 7 minutes. One of them has put it up in the chat box. Here is the article professor is referring to. So can I make technology my assistant rather than be worried about technology as my competitor? This is the skill a 21st century researcher needs to focus on. I conclude with that, I think. I don't think there is a slide beyond this. My last promise, last. I remember long years ago, I had a debate with Joshi sir on this. Basically being, are we so obsessed by Western ideas that transfer is transplantation? Use big words of the West, big terminologies and new concepts of the West, and then you are a high-flying researcher. More serious, transfer is transformation. Just because your work talks of certain Western theories, which you have not contextualized to our context, should the bottom two be our focus? In countries like ours, should our research present the multiplicity of reality? I always have, whenever elections happen, I always have 2 days interactions in Bombay with mutual fund company heads, because they all want to know what's happening in the election. And I want to talk to them because I want to know what does the market think about the election. These meetings always used to end, and I'm very sad it no longer happens. These meetings always used to end with one meeting with Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. And Rakesh used to tell me, Shastri ji, आप बताइए, मैं गलत शब्दों का उपयोग करूंगा, आप चिंता मत करिए. What you say is, you tell me the reality. I may use bad words, but don't get worried because I use bad words. In the initial days, I got frightened actually, because I used to think he has gone to sleep, but he's actually awake. And suddenly gets up and uses all foul language and says, what are you talking? But then he forced me to think. He forced me to go back to the drawing board. I still remember the last time I met him, he was not well. So he said, we will have a Zoom meeting. I said, okay. It was the West Bengal election. He was convinced something would happen. I told him, no, it will not happen. He said, you are against that party. I said, say what you want, but it will not happen. Results came. And then he sent me a message. That's the last message I got from him. The Shastri sir, you are right. Can we, in our research, recognize the multiplicity of reality? And can we pluralize our appreciation of reality? Joshi sir, sometimes today I get worried in research. Today we have got so polarized, especially in social sciences. I draw my conclusion and then search for data. I already have a conclusion. And then I look for data to just. Now when journalists call me up and they say, Dr. Shastri, this fellow moving from this party to that party will make no difference, no? I say, you already drawn your conclusion. Why are you asking me? Why are you asking me? If I say yes, then you will say, and Dr. Shastri also says this is correct. So he is searching for data to justify what he wants to, what he thinks is correct. Now, as researchers, can we truly pluralize our appreciation? 1 month back, Joshi sir, I got one of the best compliments from my students. I wrote an article. She read it and wrote back to me, sir, wonderful article, I enjoyed reading it. I said, thank you. One problem, sir. I said, what? Sir, I can't make out whether you support the BJP or Congress. I said, my job is done. My job is done. I neither support the BJP nor the Congress, I support my data. For me, data is king. And what my data tells me, I will present. Because if I was not going to rely on my data, why look at data at all then? Go ahead and say what you want to say. If you are a serious researcher, data is what drives you and your conclusion. So can I focus on that? So maybe I should stop here. And if there are questions, tough questions, Joshi sir will answer. Not so tough questions, Sadanand sir will answer. Easy ones I will answer. Ready? Please. Or is everybody waiting to go home?
Does anyone have questions? We have only got 4 minutes.
Sadanand sir, why don't we start with you?
No, I don't have any questions. See, this entire question of doing research starts with the kind of need. The need has 2 dimensions. The need of the society of which you are a part and your individual need. And research really begins when both of them come together. And this is the kind of environment that requires, and this is the kind of atmosphere to be created by the institutions. But I think now it appears as though the education institutions have got nothing to do with addressing these questions at all. The way education institutions have been evolving in India, that's what I was talking to Professor Joshi. If you look at the history of evolution of education institutions in Europe, you know that they all evolved out of the requirement of society, the kind of thing. But here, something that we got from somewhere, and so now academic and research what is happening now in India is a requirement of the institution. It's the institutional requirement of which the people who are involved in that becomes their requirement. Therefore, in that context, what Joshi was talking about vested interest is not the problem of the individuals who are working in the education institutions. Vested interest is the problem of the institutional structure. Once you enter into it, in order to survive, you have to develop a vested interest. So this is the kind of this one that need to be.
Fully concede your point. I often have asked researchers this question. And if you happen to go abroad, or if you go to a good institution in India, research institution, and you tell them that you are doing research, I guarantee you, you will be asked one question. And you know what that question is? Do you have an interesting research question? This is the first question you will be asked. Do you have an interesting research question? The point which Dr. Sadanand made. What is driving you to do that research? Is there an interesting research question that you have? Is there a research question which maybe came up during your master's days? Or which maybe came up in one of your classrooms thanks to a question that a student asked you? Is that driving you to do your research? I remember in 1999, I was taking a class, and I was taking a class on theories of democracy. And how do you start that class? You start the class by Lincoln's definition. By the people, of the people, for the people. One of my students raised her hand. I said, yes. Sir, we have heard this definition from KG to PG. From KG to PG, everybody talks only about Lincoln. You also talked, she gave it to me on the face. You also talked about Lincoln. What to do? Then she didn't stop her question there. She went on. Sir, you told us that South Asia is 20% of the world. I said, yes. At this point of time, all countries in South Asia have democracies. I said, yes. Do we not have a South Asian definition of democracy? Do we not have a South Asian definition of democracy? I didn't answer her question that day, but that set us thinking. So 4 years later, when we did the state of democracy in South Asia study of 5 countries, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. Remember, I have given you the 5 countries in alphabetical order so that you don't tell me I have given one more importance than the other. Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. When we did the study in these 5 countries, I appealed to my team that we should have one question. And what is that question? An open-ended question where we ask people, according to you, common people, according to you, what is democracy? We had something like 46,000 answers in 18 different languages. It took us 1.5 years to translate them all into one language, make the answers categories, and then we realized, yes, there is a South Asia definition of democracy. And you know what? In South Asia, a very large percentage of people defined democracy in the language of justice and welfare. Not freedom and equality, but justice and welfare. So 2 years later, when we published the report, I said, we now have a South Asia definition of democracy. That democracy is about welfare and justice. Then the Afrobarometer told us we are going to ask the same question. They asked the same question in the entire African continent. And they found that yes, we are also like South Asia in terms of what people tell us. Now, the point which Sadan raised, do we have an interesting research question to explore? I remember a biotechnology student wanted to work in the area of biotechnology and electronics engineering. I asked her, what do you want to work on? She said, I want to work on devising an instrument which will come up with the early detection of cancer, a particular type of cancer. I was curious. I said, what's making you choose this topic? She said, I lost my mother too early. I don't want other children to lose their mother so early. And that's why I want to work on this topic. So sometimes life experience makes you choose a research area. Sometimes your curiosity in the classroom makes you choose a particular area. But my point is, do you have an interesting research question? The question which Dr. Sadanand raised. And this girl who wanted to devise that early detection of cancer instrument discussed this with her guide, and the guide said, I will back you fully on this. Because I lost my wife to cancer early. So there was a meeting of minds of the guide and the student in undertaking this research. So, when I choose a research topic, is it guided by an interesting research question which came up in my mind? That's why I tell PhD students, don't come to me for the topic. You come up with the topic, discuss it with me, I'll tell you whether that's okay or not. But I'm not going to suggest the topic because there's another dimension to it. If I suggest the topic and tomorrow they get stuck, they'll say, you only deal with it now. Who gave me the topic? You only deal with it. Now, that interesting research question comes up when you take ownership for it. When you take ownership for the research that you are doing. And that happens when you are committed and embedded in the theme that you want to do work on. Possibly another question from somebody in the audience. You're looking far away, just below. Forget what is below your eyes itself.
Sir, I think there's a lot of discussion regarding the challenges that a researcher face or a faculty face when we have to do a research. It can be the time or it can be the procrastination that we do it unconsciously. But at least few of them here will agree with me that we have a lot of insecure feeling. When I say insecure is to whom should we discuss the research questions if we have, or if we have an idea. There is a forum, there is exchange programs happening in the institution, but still you're worried to discuss it to the people around you. So how should we go about it?
2 points on this. One, I remember my favorite teacher for the first point you raised. He would give us an assignment, and on the day it was due, who would go around? Assignment. And if he said, sir, yes or no? Sorry, done, not done. No third answer. Done, not done. We actually called him done, not done then after that. Professor done, not done. Now, we stopped giving him excuses because we didn't want to hear that done, not done. One day he told us in the class, students, there are 1,000 reasons why you can't do something. There is only one reason that you can do something. And that you have to decide. That you have to decide. I still remember a classmate of mine. His name is Anshu Jain. Unfortunately, he died very young. He was the chief executive of the German Deutsche Bank. when he was alive, because all my classmates are all over the world because we studied in Kabul in school. And now our school was blown up many years later and we are all over the world. He sent us a WhatsApp message. Hey guys, remember done, not done? Because we all nodded our heads as we saw it. And then he said, I have a story. I said, tell us. He said, one day he had to give an assignment to him, project. And he got down from the bus and is merrily walking in and realizes the project is in the bus. What will Professor Joseph say? When you tell him, sir, project is lying in the bus. Done, not done. So he says, I ran that day, chased my bus. Luckily it had stopped at a signal. I told the boy who was helping us getting in, getting out, my project is there, can you give it to me? He went and got the project. Anshu says, I have won 4 global awards. I never felt so happy like I felt that day getting my project in the bus. Because when Professor Joseph asked me, I can tell him, done. Only one reason, I ran, got it and gave it to him. So, for all those anxieties and fears, they are all within. Sometimes they are excuses. Sometimes they are excuses because we don't want to do it. I find a reason to justify that. Take them out. Throw it into a dustbin. Have you ever picked up anything from a dustbin? No. Don't pick it back. Because it's only you who are holding yourself back. Because you are rationalizing what you don't want to do. You are rationalizing what you don't want to do. So, find that one reason that will make you do it. Don't take the comfort zone of those 100 reasons which will not make you do it. And now to your second question. Yes, we always have that anxiety. What if? What if my idea is stolen by somebody else? Now, once you start off research, you know in dialogues how much to say and where to stop. You say only that much which will make people understand, but they can't copy that idea. Develop that skill. Don't, out of your excitement, say everything which you should not be saying, and then those problems start. Learning to draw that boundary of this much and not more than this. And some of us have been lucky that we have had mentors in our life who showed us how it is to be done. We also have people in our life whom we have learned is not what we should be doing. They are also there. Yes. There are people who have solutions to problems, there are people who have problems to solutions. Don't go for the second. There are people who would give you that confidence and faith, and you know that you can trust that person for what he or she is telling you. I wish and hope and pray all of us get such people as part of our life journey. And I was lucky to have that. I was lucky to join a department where all my seniors were my teachers. And one of my seniors, one of my senior most teachers one day called me and said, Sandeep, I have got this invitation for this conference. I said, yes, sir. I think I have now reached that stage where one more conference doesn't make a difference. You go, take this. Take this, you go. And next day when I had gone for that, 2 weeks later when I went, in the staff room we used to meet every day. He is telling my colleagues, I will not get any invitation anymore now. Because this fellow will go, he will present, they will call him now onwards, and I will not be called. But that's what happened. But would that have happened if he had not given me that first break that I needed? So I'm always grateful to him for having given me that first break. Now, many of us have that opportunity to get somebody like that, who we are ever beholden to later in life. I have been lucky to have guided 18 PhD students during my career. And each of them today is a person who stands on his own for the work that they do. I remember when they started their research, they asked me, "Sir, should we write your name for articles we write?" I said, "That's your decision, not mine. If you want to write my name, I have to read every word of what you write. The day you want to not write my name, go ahead and publish it on your own." They said, "No, sir, initially we want your name because it will allow us to break through." And then, after a stage, I had to tell them, "No more my name, now it has to go only in your name." And now, they have started that with their PhD students. Because 15 of them are guiding themselves now. They have started that. So, can we also be the harbingers of that change? So, be careful in terms of whom you trust. Be careful in terms of what you say. Because this is not a straightforward world. Especially the research world can be quite nasty in many ways. So be careful of who you share what with and how much you share. And let's hope and pray each of us is able to get that one or two mentors who can transform our life's journey, our life's research journey in important ways.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
ಸರ್ ಏನು ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಆಲ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಹೂ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ತ್ರೀ ಫೇಸಸ್. ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದೋಸ್ ಹೂ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಬಿಗನ್ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್, who have completed research and guiding students, and who are in the depth. So everyone, I think everyone could connect to what you said actually. And when it comes to anxieties and aspirations, again, yes, that anxiety field, maybe here it is interdisciplinarity, what you told, but again, when choosing a topic to the research, to how they pass through, they have that anxiety, and connecting that to our aspirations again. Everyone is not lucky enough to get a guide who can say, go according to your aspirations and not according to my will. And there comes getting the right guru in our life. That is very much important. Here I want to remember Dr. Padmavati ma'am, who always used to tell me, I had those people behind, and every time she used to take your name. One of the names was yours. So I could connect so many things over here. Thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful interactive session and insights that you have given us today.
Just add one sentence because of what you said.
Yes.
Look, a research program, a PhD program is not like a master's program. How well you gel with your guide is 90% of the work. Now, as ma'am said, zero tolerance on unethical practices. Zero tolerance. When I was Vice Chancellor and Pro-Vice Chancellor, every PhD student had my mobile number and could call me if there was a problem. And I resolved several problems. But I also told PhD students, you need to understand your guide. Because all guides are not the same. You need to understand your guide. And what happens? In those SOB sessions, we discuss with classmates, my guide, and everybody will tell only the good things about their guide. And you think the grass is always greener on the other side. So can we understand the expectations in terms of the research that the guide expects. Some guides are what a fellow researcher who Joshi sir knows says, some guides are helicopter guides, always hovering around. Some guides give you a long rope so that you hang yourself finally, and then tell you, look, you only hung yourself. Now you decide as you start off your work with your guide, how does this guide deal with? Does the guide say excellent for everything? And then you'll end up with a situation where, or does your guide pinpoint and tell you? One small episode. Many years ago, one of my students in masters who went on to do her PhD in the department, one day came running to my room and sat down, crying. I said, what happened? No, sir, the guide, sir. What? Tell me what happened. No, sir. You know what he told? What did he tell? She had just got married, ma'am. And she had gone to the guide and given her draft. What did the guide do? Guide threw it across the table and said, have you given your husband your brains as dowry? And she again starts crying. I looked at her. I said, have you given? What, sir, you are also asking? I said, so when you are not given, why are you worried? Forget about it. You think so, sir? I said, yes. Maybe there is some truth in what your guide said. Look at what you have done. Improve it and bring it back and give it to him. Okay, sir. Next day she improved and then everything got okay. Submitted her PhD, got the degree, convocation. She and guide are taking photograph together. I told her, should I tell guide what happened? Don't tell guide. Today we solved that problem. So I kept telling her, it's not about you. You don't know what mood the guide was in on that day. Maybe he fought with his wife and came there and then took it out on me. Can I ask myself the question from my research angle, what is it? You may have such similar incidents happening. And you feel bad when it happens. The only lesson you learn from that is when you become a guide, you don't do that. Sorry for having intervened.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I now request Dr. Gaurisha, sir, Director of SES, to please present a token of gratitude to Sandeep Shastri, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I now request Anusha ma'am to take over the stage for valedictory session. Thank you.